We're not going to really go through this today. This is from the Munis handbook, and it's this, oh, thanks.
Thank you.
It's basically the section from the Munis handbook of central budget entry. So it's kind of, refer to it later, but let's, for now, do you need another one?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be more for your reference later, but we'll talk through this and kind of, I want you to kind of focus more on getting your hands on in this session, and then that can be kind of a guide, that's fine, for later. So let me get back in here. Okay, so for those of you that still haven't gotten in yet, you should, so you're gonna see a lot more options on my screen than you'll probably see on your individual login. But under financials and budget processing, you should see the option for central budget entry. And that's where I want you to navigate to. Let me know if anybody has any trouble. So essentially, each of you, what you should see on your screen is only departments and budget lines that you are responsible for. I have everything on mine, so if you were to take this 2025, so by the way, this is the fiscal year 26 general operating expense budget projection that we're looking at right now. There are other projections for the enterprise funds, so on and so forth. I'll show you those later. So this projection field right here tells you what budget projection you're looking at. So if you were to go to the 2025, the May 2020, the warrant for the fiscal year 25 budget, this 51,075,095 exactly correlates to what the operating budget expense approved at town meeting was for the town, right? So this is essentially just recreating what we created for fiscal year 25 for fiscal year 26. You're going to enter your numbers in this department request field, right? So what I want to show you is there are some interesting ways to enter it other than just clicking in here and entering a number, right? So you'll notice, I'm going to scroll down to my department because I did a couple of examples already. So let's just say I'm in my salary lines, right? And I want to enter in detail on this. I do have the option to just hard enter a number. If I've done a spreadsheet, if I've made the calculations, so on and so forth. But you also have this option over here to the very left of every line, there's a plus sign, and it says add detail. If you click on one of the add detail lines, it takes you to another screen underneath all of the lines. You have several options up here in this ribbon, right? So you can add detail. So if I wanted to say my Orleans manager, union manager line, I want to add detail. Gives me the option. I can either enter an operating capital item or I can enter a salary item. This is obviously a salary line, so I'm going to select salary. What's cool about this is,
Excuse me, Jen.
Yeah.
Really quickly, are we supposed to be able to have access to do that right now?
yes,
Okay, I don't. I have all the things, I just can't add any numbers or any other questions. Yeah. So I don't know if that's just a thing that.
can you do me a favor and go back? Can you enter a number? No, just the 26. You can't even enter anything there? So they can't enter anything.
And I have the ability to save changes, just doesn't,
I thought it was just gonna two.
I guess I'm gonna go over here.
I can't solve it right now.
I just wanted to make sure that.
This is good.
We'll fix that problem. I mean, this isn't, the intention of this isn't for you to actually be entering anything, so we'll fix that problem and then you'll be able to do that. Let me go backwards just a little bit first, because I just noticed on your screen there was something that I forgot. I want, so
Shadow puppets. I'm a parent.
if you hit the return button where you are, it'll take you back to the main screen. So on this main screen, one thing that I wanted you to do was modify your default
think you want to see
view.
this.
You really don't need to see future years because you're not gonna be entering future year budgets, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to go up, and this, by the way, is notated in your paper packet too, so if you ever need to refer back to this. I want you to go up to the top where it says account columns. Open that window up. Let me see if I can make this any bigger for you. So I want you to only select, unselect on the right side, unselect everything except account description, 2026 department request budget, 2025 original budget, 2025 revised budget, 2024 actuals, and 2023 actuals.
Not 2025 actually.
I mean, they're only gonna be through 2 or 3 months of the year, so you can, if you wanna, it's more what you wanna see in order to come to a good decision about where you need to be. So you can add anything outside of this is probably the bare minimum. For simplicity purposes. So that'll help make your screen a little bit more, make a little bit more sense. And so, like Davis, do you only see your accounts?
Yep.
Okay. And you can't enter anything either? Like in the 2026 department request fields, you can't type anything? Even in that, like click one of the, under 2025 department request, no contact, return back. So underneath 2025 department request, just click one of those zeros. Are you able to type anything in there? Okay, we'll fix that. Okay, that's where you're gonna enter numbers or through that add detail. Peter and I will sort through why that's not working. But either way, I can still demonstrate and show you because I can enter, so you can at least see it and get a feel for it. So anyway, I'm gonna go back into details that I've already entered. So in my manager's union assistance, so I was able to go in here, and what's really, really cool about this is you can enter multiple lines for multiple employees, and it sum totals up your total. And it gives us, when we're reviewing the budget, the detail right within the system. So I can open up this detail that I already entered, and you can see that for fiscal year 26, I've put in my assistant town accountant, his grade, his step, his location, employee number, you know, and I can type some notes in here, or justification if there's a change request or something to that effect. Do you all see this at all? Okay. But I know you can't enter them yet, but, so anyway, basically I could then go in and I could add another individual. Oops. I could add another salary line, whomever I wanted to add, right? Even if it's a vacant job. I can select in here and I'll just put in a principal accounting clerk for fun and say that they're gonna make unit cost, I'm gonna just put 25,000 for fun, save and close, and you'll see that that total will go up to the total of both, right? So then when I go back to my main screen where my totals are, and I go to that line, you see that it's auto-populated with my budget that sum totals all the employees that are underneath it. So what's good about this is it gives us, you know, from the perspective of reviewing this after the fact, a good view of, you know, how many FTEs there are, positions, what the total budget amounts are. This is year one, so my expectation of your ability in this shortened time frame in the first year we're doing it is less about you getting into the granularity of all of this year. I hope that this is where we're going in the future, where this is going to be far more detailed in the system and less on paper. But as an alternative, If you have spreadsheets and things that you've already calculated these all out, done things on paper, whatever, you can also go into one of these lines and you can say, okay, I'm gonna enter that for this line, 50,000 is my number, okay? And you're not entering any detail behind it, but if you highlight back on that line and then you do this attach up here, you can do attach account. And then you can do a budget account attachment. And this is TCM, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, you'll use this. It is Tyler Content Manager. It was a training we did probably about just over a year ago. And it is a document capture system within Munis. So it's like when we enter invoices, all the invoices are scanned via TCM into Munis records. So anyway, so now that you're in, this is TCM, Tyler Content Manager. Tyler, by the way, is the parent company of Munis. You can create a new document by clicking Add. These options open up for you. You can import it from an existing file on your computer. You can scan it in from a scanner that's on your desktop, however you want to do it. But if you import from a file, it's very easy to go out and just find, I'll just grab something here and throw it in there for fun. So I can say, okay, here's my detail for that line item. I'm gonna save it, and then you can exit out of Content Manager, and now it shows that you have one document saved. So I'm gonna get out of that, and then if you went on and were doing other things and you came back and you wanted to see what was in here, you can go into this and there's your document. You can click that and there it is. And you can see the detail. So you can kind of, in the system, you can support whatever you're requesting and include your documentation here so we don't have to trade paper or emails back and forth. It can all be in one kind of central location. So, I mean, primarily, that's the nuts and bolts of all of this. I think that you do have the ability, this little pencil right here gives you the ability to enter some notes if you wanted to put a little note for yourself. Hey, don't forget to do this, right? And it'll show that it has a note on it instead of a pencil. So that gives you, and then you can save it, because it doesn't save those changes automatically on each page. So then at the end, right, you should have a comparable, right, looking back of what your request total is versus what it was the prior year versus what the actuals were 2 years ago and 3 years ago. So any questions so far? Judy?
So there's no equivalent to the attachment fee. So if you have lots of employees, you have to go in and do the detail by line item.
So in the future, I would like the answer for that to be yes, because there is an abbreviated timeline in getting this done between the training right now and getting it done. It's fine if you enter a hard number and then attach the B. That's fine. I wanted to show it to you because it is my hope that that's where we're going. If not in this system, in another system, but likely, one or the other, there will be detail behind it. If you have few employees and you're able and willing to give it a try, give it a try. I think I plan to do it. If I can help in any way, I will. Mark?
Just on that front, if you have a lot of employees, is there an Excel import option that you
I'm
would have in
certain
that
that
sense?
there is, and I can dig into that.
Yeah, maybe for in the future when
Yeah.
that is necessary.
Absolutely. Yep.
Are we gonna get the opportunity to have a training portion where we're not working with the live portion, where we can't manipulate numbers here?
I mean, you can go into train anytime, and,
Okay, so we can pull this up in our training?
yeah,
Okay.
yep.
So in that sense, when we were preparing for FY '25, we got some of those sheets that, especially I guess Judy, me, and I'm sure DPW, with our seasonal employees, will we still receive those? to be able to run those numbers for FY '26?
Yes, we have to do them. We just had this conversation with Nate the other day.
Okay.
Basically, you can continue to calculate it in the way that you would have, and then we'll input that data right into this system while we're doing the conversion. It's just the easiest way to do it, right?
And then, last question, when we're adding the non-union others, which is our seasonal employees, since we don't have names attached to that, if we did decide to go in and add 26 employees, do they have to be named in the system, or can they just be?
Not by person, none of them have to be named by person, because there's a chance that you have a vacant position or whatever. Any identifier that allows us to recognize what it is, like this is for a lifeguard, this is for a, whatever the category is, any of that would suffice.
So as I do now, I do election workers, and there's a total based on how many hours I think I'm gonna have
Mhm.
election workers work, so I would just do that the same way.
Yep.
Just, okay, easy enough.
So if we don't have the detail though, because we have union contracts being negotiated, if you don't have the detail, how do we revise the budget?
Revise.
It'll have to be revised when union contracts get settled.
Well, correct. I mean, even the numbers right now that are in the salary GLs need to be revised.
We need detail somewhere, whether we put it in as a lump sum, but we have to have the detail, correct, in order to be able to look at it.
And
At some point, we'll need to adjust those numbers.
the 20, you're talking about 2025?
Well, no, I'm talking about this, 2026. We're working, so union negotiations are being, worked on right now.
Correct.
So when we enter this, what are we using for our numbers? And then we have to have details somewhere so that we can go back and revise the budget.
So, I mean,
If we had, like you saw your employee up there, once we're able to see that you're controlling the salary side from some other back end, you're just choosing the employee, and if the
What I
salaries are
want you to
correct.
do is to use 6% for your salaries. That does not assume that's what we're giving, but that provides us at least with the cushion enough that, if we don't get settled in time, or if we do get settled in time, right? Like, I don't want to put any additional pressure on, but I want to put enough in there. Last year, I actually went back and adjusted most of your salary lines to 5.5%. Like, you did your initial calculations, and then I went in and changed them anyway. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I did, because you didn't know that they had changed, right? So like, you didn't know what we were planning on doing, and so you do your calculations on your 6. I'll know that's what you've all put in, assume that's what it is, right? And going forward, so normally it's not to the penny in a salary line. There is room in there, right? So it just isn't a presumption that that's what we're gonna give, but it's gonna give us enough space to budget, right? In case we can always come down, right? I don't wanna have to find money later.
It's gonna be 2025 revised at
Yes,
6.
so use 6, and then just understand, that doesn't mean that's what it is. It just means I'm building in capacity.
Some cushion,
right? Yes.
yep.
So has
And-
25 been revised?
It's
Because
a-
the numbers, I didn't see that in mine.
So for-
The number was what I
Those
gave
people that had
for the
revisions.
budget, and I have a lot of Plan B.
Right, so-
And also clerical and technical.
So salary transfers after your budget get calculated basically from my office and would be handled with year-end transfers. So you don't have to take them from, so a lot of your lines might look like they're gonna run short, but we can transfer in the last 3 months of the year to cover that. And that's why I built in a reserve for negotiations. So that's the thing. I mean, you guys you've had a practice where you're doing a spreadsheet for salaries and everything is supposed to be exact. That's atypical. That's not normal. Normally, it's a budgeted estimate of salaries in a line. So that provides, so some can be over, some could be under, right? We will adjust them for year end to make sure everybody gets paid, right?
So use 6% if it's a step and a COLA?
Just use
Just
6
the board?
across the board for whatever. And basically, you
2025
can take your
revised,
entire
yes.
lump amount right now for 25 and put 6 in. Make your lives easier, right?
And obviously, when we negotiate the contracts, we'll know, you'll know the numbers in the future. So this is
Yeah, the
in between.
likelihood is, what would happen is, if it's less than 6, we'd end up just transferring that money out and putting it in a different spot, right? But that, or we'd leave it, just so that there's enough, right? If we have to come down later, I'd rather do that than have to find 3% everywhere across the board or something, so just use it. I wouldn't worry, calculate it like you normally would, add 6, and don't worry, we have extra money to fill in the gaps. It doesn't have to be super, super accurate, all right? Like, and also, round, for the love of God. Everything should end in a 0, right? Preferably like a 5 and a 0, like zeros, like round up or round to a 0, round the number up, okay? No $1.50, whatever, none of that, okay? Zeros.
22 cases of toilet paper
None
at
of that.
$3.99.
Right, rounded, their budgets are estimated numbers. They're not exact numbers, right? They're estimates. So feel free to estimate up a little to get to an even number, all right?
Yep. And for clarity too, I wanted to say that you see this current level right here, it says department request. In Munis, right now, the default is there's 5 steps to this budget process, right? Step 1 is department request. That's where you're entering your requests. We go through management review, we go through different steps at which these numbers might change. We'll have meetings with you, we'll talk about things. Things might get modified along the way at another step, right? And then it will be communicated back to you. So this is step 1 in a process that doesn't finish until step 5. So some of this might get modified between now and then, which you'll be in the loop on, but this is just a starting ground for you to say, this is what I think I need in order for my budget to be complete. What other questions? Scott?
So, on the screen here, this has, if you scroll down at the bottom left there, and you go several pages in, these are budget lines for the entire town.
This is the entire town, the entire
One has
town
to go
operating
and
budget.
Find one's department?
No, you'll only have access to your department, so you should only see 145.
No, I see everything.
Oh, that's a problem. Where's Peter?
We can't touch anything.
Okay.
Everything's locked out.
Everything's locked out, but if everyone sees everything, there's the
No,
chance you're
everybody
gonna enter a
should
budget
not
and
see
someone
everything.
else. Okay.
We'll
I
fix-
only see mine.
Okay,
We
thank you.
only- Yeah, we only see 171.
Okay, we'll fix that.
But we don't see like the employees, like you selected your employee.
Yeah, you can't get into the detail. Peter and I will work on that after this meeting. We tested it and it worked, so I'm a little shocked, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. So, I mean, really in reality, at the end of the day, like I said, once you have all your numbers in, you have your comparables to kind of look back on and say, does this make sense? And then in total, up here, this top line, you'll have a comparable too, like, does this pass the sniff test? Do I have, $1 million in my total when last year I only had 400,000? Why is that, right? Like, so use that as a guide. And obviously, if you guys run into questions on the Munis end, like figuring out how to make this work, let me know. Shoot me an email, call me, whatever. I'll make myself as available as I can to help you work through any issues. If you're having trouble with the detail, don't get caught up in that this year, right? Like, enter your numbers, right? Enter your numbers, and even if you have to hand us some paper this year to get it done, the goal is to get it done in the system, right? And what you have time to do to add on this extra stuff is great, and we will do in the future. But if this year you're running into walls, priority number 1 is getting the numbers in. Is that fair?
So once everything's all cleared up and we're able to add, on the bottom it says save changes, so like, we can go in and remember myself for seasonal employees. I can do everything else, right? Click save changes and then 2 days come back with all my.
You bet. You bet. Yeah, you can save it, go on to something else, come back to it. 100%. I do want to show you one more thing though, because as I mentioned,
Let us know when that locks in, so that we can get, so that we can go and do a piece at a time.
well, your deadline
It's the
date.
deadline.
Yeah, your deadline date is what you have through. Unless anything changes, which we would notify you of, right? Like, the other thing I wanted to talk about just really quickly, I mentioned to you that this projection 2601 is the fiscal year 26 general operating expense budgets, right? I did build some other projections, so I want to show you. You can go up to, where's it at? Change projection. You see this in this top ribbon? And if you do this pull down, now there's like 300 years of history in here, so I got to figure out how to get some of those to not populate in the list. But So all of these that start with 26, right, are my new budget categories. So you have fiscal year 26 general operating expense budget, fiscal year 26 general operating revenue budget. We have a fiscal year 26 beaches enterprise fund, transfer station, and sewer. I did have a conversation with Rich, which I'll talk to him later, that, which I don't think anybody in here is related to it, so it probably doesn't matter, but I gotta figure out how to, now that the moorings and Rock Harbor have been terminated, how we're gonna budget these. We may continue to budget them as an enterprise fund, but either way, that's why they're not on here right now. We're trying to decide that. So if you have anything in any of these other categories that you need to enter, although I think Kim and I are gonna handle the revenue budget. But if you happen to do anything with the enterprise funds, those are in here. You can select that projection, and I'll just show you one for fun so that you can see a different one. And you can see here that there are multiple revenue lines that also need budgets entered. So that's kind of how you get from projection to projection, but you guys are all primarily going to live in this 2601. Your system should all default to 2601 when you open central budget entry. So, but I would just always double check in that top corner up there that you're in projection 2601. If you're missing any accounts, I kind of hand created these list of accounts based on the prior budgets. If there were lines in prior years that you used that maybe you didn't use the last couple of years, but you need, like suddenly you're gonna buy some more furniture and you had a furniture line 3 years ago, but it's not there now, let me know. I'll add it into your projection. And same kind of story, all the details not in here, but when we talked about a while back that we switched to these roll-up codes for budgets, where basically now your total expenses roll up to one total. And that's how we got rid of budget amendments, manual budget amendments, if you remember. So all of these, when they get built, they'll get built so that those roll-up codes will live. And so this is gonna be kind of, the beauty of this process is that it kind of creates this seamless start to finish, like from beginning to end, a way for all of this information to become live and in use when we start fiscal year 26. So what have I not explained well? What questions do you have? I mean, as you start to do it and you have questions, let me know. That may be where the rubber meets the road.
Jen, I only
Yep.
have access to the budget projections to the 26. Like, I probably need this year's and the last year's to kind of compare, right?
Well, if you did the columns that I mentioned, if you modified your columns, you should see 25 right in your projection for 2601. You shouldn't need to see the prior year projection. Do you see a fiscal year 25 or a fiscal year 24?
Left to right across.
Yeah, so those are your numbers.
Projections, you know, okay.
You only need to change projection to see what the budget entry was for that particular
It's like
year. You
count
don't need to
columns.
change it to a prior year to enter anything
Right.
or review anything. It should be in 2601.
George, hit account columns and then you add some old budgets so you can see them. properly.
And the detail of what account columns I recommend is in this packet. It's page 5. So, if
So we're
you,
salaries plus 6, general line items at 3,
Yeah.
and then talk about with you, like, new money when we go through meetings and stuff like that?
I'm trying, right, to keep the town's budget at 3%, which is gonna be a real struggle, but I'm trying to make a point.
Yeah.
So to the extent that you can, right, keep everything mostly the same. If you have stuff that you know, obviously put it in. I'd rather know than not know, figure it out.
Stuff that blows us up over 3, you want in the initial
Yeah, I
submission?
mean, like, if you have stuff where you really want to try to move forward on this year, put it in, and we'll talk about it, right? That's fine. I just really want to try to, we have a lot of debt exclusions coming in May, so I really would like our budget to be pretty basic this year, so we can just be like, nothing to see here, please pass all this, right? So to that extent, like, if we have any big initiatives, like, maybe we want to wait a year, but we can talk about it. Don't be afraid to put it in, like, just because you put it in there, like, so all right.
You could call it out if you don't wanna
Yeah,
carry it
right,
forward.
like, I'd rather know what you're thinking about something, like an idea, and then be able to say, all right, well, maybe not this year, maybe next year, or maybe, like, I'd rather know, right? And I'll worry about what the bottom line looks like when we go there, right? So put in what you need, and then I'll do my best to,
And
you know,
again,
make it work.
even if you get caught up or don't have time to do the detail or whatever, this little note field with this little pencil beside each account, it's a great place to just throw a little quick, here's what I'm thinking and why I picked this number, or here's the change, or here's just something, it gives a place where you're recording why you chose the number that you chose.
Can you see that if we put something in?
Yes.
So it would help make
I believe so,
We can't,
yes.
so it's not allow us to make a note on anything
I mean, one of you could test it if you want to throw a note in
yet.
one
I
of
don't
your
think
lines.
it's allow us to
and-
make notes, cause it doesn't allow us to
Okay,
make
well,
a
we'll fix
data
that.
entry on the number side. If we entered a number, it'd probably allow us to make a note on the number.
Yes. Sorry.
On the change projection tab,
Yep.
top ribbon, all that we have is just 26.
This is right here.
Okay.
Is that,
That's fine for now.
should be that way?
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you're going to deal in. I think there's only a few people that are going to deal in other projections.
It looks easy.
Yeah. My advice is copy over your budget from the year before, right? Start there, and then adjust once you need to adjust, right? Like, like the salary part, like I said, it's gonna change a couple times anyway, so don't worry too much about it, just put it in, right? I'm gonna run through it, like really run it, hopefully like over Thanksgiving, that break. I'd like to really run a budget, so that's the time frame for me to like really print one out and see where we're at. So if you could get it in before then, doesn't have to be perfect. We obviously don't finalize the budget until St. Patrick's Day, so like, we have a long time. But like, I would like to get the budget done a little bit earlier so that we can focus on the other stuff, and I think it's pretty straightforward this year. So, just don't stress too much about it, just put it in. Yeah.
So in years past, we've, for those of us with buildings, we've always been given very specific direction for how to deal with utilities. How do you want us to manage that this year?
Meaning what
Or like,
instruction?
So we
Specific.
what
always
percentage to
said
put in,
what
that's
to
one
put
of
Oh.
the things. I have no idea, I haven't looked at it yet.
Last year it was 6%.
Does anybody know what electricity is gonna be?
Well, it's this, we've
30%
entered a
again?
contract, so
Yeah,
we're
so
not
we're good.
changing in
Right.
terms of the
And
price.
I went back and changed those too, actually, in a lot of the budgets, so,
I think what you need to do
There's
is,
3 for now.
yeah, right.
look at your actuals, where you're at now, and you should be able to kind of gauge.
Kind of do
Yeah,
a straight
but-
line
right.
calculation, right?
Yeah,
Like,
electricity
if
was
you've paid
ridiculous.
3
We
months,
were always given very specific details for how to enter that.
Do not worry about it.
yeah,
Like,
same.
I will catch it, and if you
Yeah.
don't catch it, we'll fix it, right? Like, that's, last time, once your budgets were in, I was still, like, half of them had that 30% or whatever for for electric, and half didn't, and I just wanted it, put it up, so, in the different accounts, so, I usually catch most of them.
Scott?
Is there a tool or something where on your expenses, if you increase one expense 8%, the next expense nothing, the next expense 1, the next one 3.4, that shows the
Total.
cumulative percentage, so we know if we're at that 3% hit?
I'm not sure. I
think you're
can,
gonna be over it no matter what, because it's the 6%, that's why it's tricky, right?
Yeah.
So, I would say, put in what you think you need, right, in the accounts, and then, like, we'll back out what we don't, if we have to, right?
Okay.
That's my plan
Yeah.
anyway, which is, I'd rather see it in there. I mean,
Remember they used to have
I will say that so I'm a bit in my infancy with this as well. I've taken a deep dive to figure out how to build this and at least get us started. I know there are UDFs, user-defined fields that will allow me to put in a field that will do something I customize it to do. I have not yet dug into how to do that. So the answer to your question is, I'm pretty sure there's probably functionality that will allow us to do that, but I don't know how to do it yet.
Looks like there is an Excel export option.
Yeah, you could pull it out, absolutely, and do that manually, 100%. Melissa?
When will I get an Excel spreadsheet with the salaries of the firefighters and all their craziness that goes with their overtime and
I can't
Write a
answer
memo
that. I
first.
don't,
Where does that usually come from?
Cindy.
Or are you not gonna just add 6% to those numbers, however?
They've got so many stipends and different rates, depending on overtime, what the overtime is. There's many factors that calculate their pay. Like, there's probably 8 or 9, 10 different categories for each firefighter that need to be calculated, so that spreadsheet is super helpful in how we figure things out.
I'll add 6% to the salaries, and then that will change everything else. If you know, and we don't know what.
Yeah, no, I
anything
get that,
else,
but there's
right?
just so many moving
Yeah.
parts in that, and then with the FLSA rates,
we
it
kept
changes
it-
that, and the,
We kept the police and fire spreadsheets going, because they're so complicated.
yeah.
So I'll get it to you.
and I think you had a question, Tom?
Yeah, just, you mentioned two things, and again, I guess this is only for the people with the seasonal employees, right? So, would you rather have, because you said we have the option of putting in each individual person, we don't have to put a name to them, or we can just put in the non-union others, $500,000, and then attach that.
Again, for this
What would you
year,
rather have?
for this year, the priority is to get the numbers in, right? You have a kind of an abbreviated timeline, it's a new system, right? Getting the numbers in is most important. If you feel that you have time to dig into that detail, that's where I'd love for us to go, you know, maybe by next year. If you want to kick the tires this year, please have at it, and I'm happy to help.
The individual positions, which is really what it is, it's positions, it's so that we can use sort of an HR function of the future about FTEs.
Yes,
Right? It's more of that, right? Eventually, once all the positions are in the system too, like, you're always gonna do your own calculation on a spreadsheet for seasonal employees. Facts. That's never gonna go away. But we would have a bigger picture organizationally of impacts, you know, we could just hit a button and say 6% for these categories, and it would just calculate for us.
Yeah.
Once they're in. So, it's a future goal.
Put it in.
yeah, but again, I mean,
And it's, and again, it's the FTEs, right? It's the positions, right? And let's face it, if you have seasonal budget, it is based upon a certain number of positions, but you might change that and hire a full-time this and a part-time that and whatever. So yours is really about the entire amount, less about, you know, 5 of these, 6 of that, 1 of those, right?
and make sure you remember to include, you know, even if you have vacant positions,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Make sure you're budgeting for your vacant positions. Yeah. What other questions? All right. Well, if you think of any more, I'm here. Thanks, guys.
I think anyone that doesn't have access to Munis should probably let Peter know now, so.
We'll take care of it.
I do, it's just, when I looked
Yeah.
up my notes, I have 3 different passwords, and none of them were acceptable, so.
Mhm.
When will you allow data entry?
We're gonna,
We'll figure it out.
we're gonna figure it out right after this, so,
Thanks.
sorry.
So my question is, so is the FY '25 6% that we gave not adjusted in these numbers?
For salaries?
Yes.
No, you told me we were gonna do them later.
Right, so that's the problem, which is
Yeah.
they're using old data that hasn't already been
Correct.
adjusted. So you actually have to adjust even more than that. You have to adjust the 25, and then you have to adjust 26 6%.
Maybe if
Well,
we get,
the 25 would have been adjusted by the 5.5, and then, or whatever it was negotiated
Right, so
up
it-
half
so
a
it'll-
percent.
so
We should be
half-
under half a percent.
0.5% is what it would have.
So
to be.
up half a
6.5%
percent and then
is what
6.5.
you need to budget,
Yeah.
okay?
or one of the, we could
Over
get,
the current number.
we can get the printouts or the salaries, the actual salaries from Cindy
Yes.
in a spreadsheet so that staff, department managers know this is the exact number they're getting, and
Add
we're gonna do
6%
6%
to that
of
number.
that. So
Yes, that would be
helpful.
better.
Yes.
Yep.
The other thing is the longevity. There's a few people that are kinda weird.
I get a lot of them.
Yeah,
It looks like
that
it's
they
in
work
there.
part-time.
Salaries
They
Are they
have like a
percentage based or-
part-time.
Some
Are
might
they
be.
flat dollar amounts?
Complicated.
Some
Just
of
be
them are
good to check
flat
'em.
amounts, but then there's people like Greta and Judy that work part-time, full-time.
Same team.
And she would calculate how many years she worked, 35 hours, how many years she did
But it's
this,
still a
that.
flat,
I
it's a
have
flat
no
dollar
idea.
amount, right?
It's not in there.
It is.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like, just like adding a couple grand to a line, right? So you would just add a certain amount to cover the
Whatever
number of
it is.
longevities within your department, right? Doesn't, again, you, in an ideal world, you have some cushion in your salary lines for these things. You know, I would say, I would like to have $1,000 in each of the lines as a cushion for potentially the change between, that's 1,000 and then it's 1,500 or something, right? So that it's not a major change, but,
Oh,
you
we
know.
haven't had,
I know.
I'm just being, we haven't had that. I mean, right now, our numbers, I don't think got changed because I have a side spreadsheet that I work on because I'm short in the budget for the year and I assumed you.
Your numbers
Right.
aren't changed.
Right.
They
Right at
aren't.
the end of the fiscal year. there
right, we
will be some
transferred the end of the year,
reconciliation.
right. They'll be adjusted for the end in the last
But they
few
should
months.
only be short by about 0.5%,
Yeah.
because that was the
Right.
negotiation.
Right.
I'm assuming they won't have access to the salary tables on Munis, because that would just,
No,
then I won't have to print them out and send them.
no, they won't
So
have
you could
access
just
to
pull
salary
it up, you
tables.
know, the
No,
salary and-
no.
Well,
We should make
if you
one
can-
and send
You
it.
just download the PD, or the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we can send it out.
Right. We can send out one master sheet to work off of.
Yeah.
Can I just ask another question, since you're on the mic?
Yeah.
Is Plan B going to be adjusted? Because there's been talk about that for a couple of years, but has yet to be done.
What is that, the permanent part-time?
Yeah.
I haven't even got there in terms of my thinking. I mean, honestly, we're just getting to full-time employees, right? I
love
would
to
s-
sit
I would
on the list, 'cause
say-
I'm hiring everybody at Talkstep. There's no
Yeah,
hiring.
I mean,
at
that's the
Talkstep.
tricky part right now, which is we are literally, hopefully this month, finally gonna get the Collins Center to come in here and do the interview pieces for clerical and technical and the managers, get that done. And the managers one is 99% done. I just need them to bless it, basically. And then, once those are set, then I can do the clerical, technical, and then I can do the rest of them, right? And then we can do DBW. So like, I'm hoping to be ready and done with all of that by December, right? So that our numbers, at least for those 3 groups, will be good, right? Then I gotta move on to these guys. So, so the question I'm having is, still, I gotta figure out how much money I actually need to do half of this stuff that we're thinking of doing, and making sure I have enough within this budget so that it doesn't look like some outrageous thing when we get to the floor in May, right? That's where I'm at. I'm trying to figure out how to time it. Does it mean this much this year, this much next? Like, I gotta figure that out, but that's what I'm doing in my free time, my spare time.
Sounds fun.
But I'm trying to get it done. I mean, soon.
Part of that is too, like, some of the Plan B people have the same title and are doing the same.
Right, that's the other part.
Duties as someone who's a full-timer, and they're getting, there's an issue there, so
Right.
correcting that is really important.
So can we just recap that in a quick sentence? Cindy's gonna add 6% to the correct numbers of current pay scales and send it around, right?
No.
Well,
I'm gonna
Cindy's
send
just
you
sending the
I'm
existing.
gonna send you the current salary, and you're gonna put.
That's fine. But based on Munis carrying some old stuff, we might look like more than 6 when we
It's
submit.
gonna,
It's gonna look like more than 6. It should be roughly 6.5.
Understand? Thank
Yep.
you for the recap.
Yep.
but I feel though, like this budget year is actually the one where we can make these sort of bigger adjustments, right, and justify it, because we're switching to a new system and we're changing some of the way the lines are organized. So like, future years, it'll be more obvious, right? This is the year to sort of course correct on shifting things, like if we wanna move somebody from here to another place or add or do, it's this year. Because it's easier to explain, we're going to a brand new system, like we've changed the way we process this line. It's not really 35%, it's really 3, because we combine these two. That's this year. Future years, it's gonna be very obvious when we make changes, because they're all gonna come out of this system, right? So just keep that in mind.
Roger that.
when you're thinking about how we pass a budget, right? Like, if there has to be something you've considered doing for a while, some sort of change, especially structurally, it's now, okay? It's this budget cycle.
Cool. That's all I have, unless you have any more questions. We'll let you know as soon as everything's fixed for your entry. Sorry about that.
We're having six.
Thank you.
6.